Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. It's Tuesday, July 29th. Derek Van Riper, Saris, Trevor May here with you on this episode. We take a spin around the league. We had the debut of Carson Whisenhunt for the Giants on Monday night. We'll talk about that 80-grade changeup, talk about how that debut went all around. The Dodgers are promoting a prospect due to some infield injuries. Alex Freeland got a few minor trades and injury follow-ups to get to. Couple big picture topics, as I mentioned on Monday's show. We're going to talk about Nick Kurtz and how we would game plan to pitch against him. Basically, can you get into the strikeout rate somehow? Can you find places he doesn't do damage and actually get Nick Kurtz out? So he's putting together a fantastic rookie season. We're also going to talk about protecting pitchers a little bit as well. If we have any, looking for evidence to discuss possible tweaks that have actually worked as teams try all sorts of different things to reduce major injuries to pitchers. Is it going anywhere? We'll look at some longer-term trends there. Some sad news, though, from the baseball world on Monday. We learned of the passing of Cubs legend Ryne Sandberg, passing away at the age of 65. Sandberg revealed more than a year ago that he had been diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer. And his passing comes just at a brutal time, coming off of Hall of Fame weekend, and just thinking about the impact he had on that franchise and actually on a generation of baseball fans. I was thinking about this a lot over the last day, and just the Cubs in the 80s and 90s, along with the Braves because of TBS, but the Cubs because of WGN were one of those teams that were on all the time. So during summer break, afternoon games at Wrigley, Cubs were on TV, no matter where you lived, right? And Ryne Sandberg was the face of those teams. He was kind of Mr. Cub for our generation. So a lot of us grew up, he was either our favorite player, maybe a friend's favorite player, and a guy that could do everything on the field. One thing I did not know about Ryne Sandberg, guys, 20th round draft pick of the Phillies, knew that part, out of Spokane, Washington, turned down a chance to go play quarterback at Washington State to go into professional baseball right out of high school, and actually got traded to the Cubs in 1982. It was a deal that sent Larry Boa to the Cubs for Ivan DeJesus, but had an amazing career. I mean, a Hall of Famer, NL MVP in 1984, 10 All-Star games, 9 Gold Gloves, a home run derby, has a statue now out in front of Wrigley, and just a larger-than-life player in one of baseball's most storied franchises.
Dodged a bullet with the Washington State. Just want to throw it out there.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a Coug for your whole life. Rough.
I pulled this guy out of a pack. I saved up my money for it. It was a bad investment. $12 pack with only basically this card is the best card in the set. But I tweeted about that recently, and a bunch of people said they had the card. So this was kind of an iconic card, I think. I remember, and I just remember the just utter joy I had when I was like, I did it. I got the card I wanted. I got the Ryne Sandberg rookie. I was like doing little dances around the living room. I in terms of a personal relationship with him as a player, I was a Braves fan at that time. He was more annoying than he was somebody I was a fan of, but he was a good player, and I'm sad that it went down like this for him. But it's funny too that he won the award in 1984. That is his best season by WAR. But he had, in 1984, he had 19 homers, stole 32 bases, had, bonkers defensive numbers. He had other seasons where his sort of top line offensive numbers are better. From 1989 to 1991 or so, we're talking about 30 homers a year and 20 steals a year. A 140 WRC plus during that time. So that was a killer time there between the turn of from 89 to 91. That was his best streak. And he could have been even better a little bit longer. There's some injuries hurt him in 93 and 94. But what a great career. Just a really great career. Ended up with a 285 career average, 282 homers, 1,000 RBI, 1,000 plus RBI, 1,000 plus runs. And I think the defense was a big part of his case for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, a guy that could
people like that.
Guy that could do everything on the field, and his Hall of Fame speech comes up a lot as an all-timer. his own words, the reason I'm here, they tell me, is that I played the game a certain way, that I played the game the way it was supposed to be played. I don't know about that, but I do know this. I had too much respect for the game to play it any other way. And you're mentioning some of his other seasons. He had a 40 home run season that didn't get an MVP award, which in that era that he played, that was usually enough to get you over the top. That was I think a Barry Bonds Pirate season where Barry Bonds was doing everything and had like a 9 WAR that year. But I think, Ryne Sandberg was a huge star from our childhood. And I think a big part of why a lot of us love baseball. Definitely one of those players you tried to mimic and emulate when you're out playing in the yard. Let's get to some other baseball news, though, from around the league. Carson Whisenhunt made his big league debut on Monday. We saw a big strikeout rate drop from him at AAA this year, but the best walk rate that we've seen for Carson Whisenhunt at any of his extended stops so far as a pro. The scouting report has an 80 grade changeup for Carson Whisenhunt. He got one that he threw to O'Neal Cruz right here in the first inning of that debut. Watching it on video, I'm like, that's a good changeup, but what makes Carson Whisenhunt's changeup such an elite pitch?
I don't know. I think it's actually command of the pitch, I think that he puts it in a great place over and over again, and he's been shown the ability to throw it right on right as well. So it's a pretty good weapon. I think I think it's somewhere between. It's like kind of almost a straight change. It's almost like a sinker and then a sinker off the sinker. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of takes that place where it's not a straight change where it looks exactly like the changeup, but it's also not a pitch that looks very different from his sinker. And so, an 11-mile-an-hour difference. It's kind of straight changey.
I mean, it's got a bunch of run. Like that's, it looks like he's got a very natural ability to turn the ball over. He's a pronator. And I mean, even that the angle in San Francisco too is not great to see arm side run from a lefty.
For a lefty,
So for it to even look, because that looked like it moved like a good amount, even from with all that said. So it's probably moving a ton. And also his arm action on it is it's very clear. It's a very, very comfortable. He rolls out of bed and throws that thing. And it looks arm speed wise exactly like his fastball. So that's what you look for. But it is definitely a classic version of a changeup, which we don't see it that often anymore.
It's a small arsenal though. And I wonder, with the sinker being his primary pitch, I'm not too surprised he had some struggles. His strikeout rates in the minors weren't that great either. So he isn't necessarily considered one of the top prospects in baseball as a pitcher.
Now, getting an opportunity right now, Landon Roop went on the IL coming out of the weekend, so we'll probably get another turn or two from Carson Whisenhunt before a possible return to AAA.
I kind of like, who I like almost a little bit more in that rotation. It's kind of getting his chance, and I'm hesitant to say it because, some of these takes don't age well, but I like Carson Seymour. I like him maybe a little bit more than Whisenhunt. And the reason I like Carson Seymour is, and I've got a comp, it's a dead comp. He's Clay Holmes. He's got the same arm angle as Clay Holmes. He's got the same sinker as Clay Holmes. The only thing he doesn't have that Clay Holmes has is the sweeper, which is important. But he does have 2 breaking balls where he has a gyro slider and a curveball that he plays off of that. And it's just one of those like over the top guys that has a crazy sinker off of that. And I think he can do enough with the fastball to have. I think I see a full arsenal there. When I look at Whisenhunt, I see 2 pitches that are pretty good, but like I don't know, I get nervous when you have 2 pitches that are pretty good. They have to be really good. You know what I mean? Like the 2 pitch guys that come up, you have to be like, oh, are you Spencer Strider? Okay, then I'm into it, But so I've got my eye on Carson Seymour. That's a deep league. That's a deep league call. We'll see.
Yeah, that's planned probably for the long-term future, like next year and beyond. Maybe
I don't know, because this right now there's a lot of upheaval in the Giants rotation, and so
they're going to tear it down at the deadline.
No. I'm just saying anything in the next 2 weeks can happen because they've got these pieces where they're in that mode where they're like, Seymour comes in for 3 innings. Whisenhunt pitches 4 innings. right? It's really not that hard to change that decision. It's like what the Athletics are doing with JT Ginn and Jack Perkins and, some of their guys. They have these guys at like 3-4 innings. It's really not that hard to make one a starter and one a reliever. So next week they could switch and Whisenhunt could be in relief and Seymour could start if that's how it works out. And also they're looking, if they buy in San Francisco, they're looking actually for a back end starter. So I don't think any of these guys is like assured of anything, is basically what I'm saying. I think it's all up in the air right now, and you never really know how it's going to land.
Yeah, it's. I think with Carson Whisenhunt, I'm really interested to see if he gets away from the combo of the sinker and changeup 90% of the time. Will he throw more sliders? Will he add something else down the road? Because there would be some multi-inning reliever risk in the way he's approaching things right now, being so sinker change heavy at this point. And especially thinking about the way the Giants have used guys in that kind of flexible long relief role in recent years too. They seem to have no problem leaning on someone on their roster to eat up innings that way. I did see a note that Alex Freeland will join the Dodgers. A couple injuries there. Hyun-Sung Kim and Tommy Edman are both banged up, so Freeland probably going to get a little bit of run, at least in the short term. We'll see if that leads to anything. Probably by the end of this week, we'll have a better sense of just how much he's going to play. But the minor trade that went down on Monday was a Danny Jansen to the Brewers move. Eric Haas got DFA'd in a corresponding move. Trevor, I just wanted to ask you, how difficult is it to get on the same page with a new catcher midseason? Be that someone that wasn't in the organization, that was acclaimed or traded for, or even just someone that was promoted that you haven't thrown to before? Because I hear this a lot as a deterrent for catchers, impact catchers even, being traded in season.
There's some initial difficulty, and the speed at which a guy gets used to the staff and gets on the same page is usually dependent on the guy. I would say it's harder for catchers who are already there and then new pitchers coming in to get used to those guys than vice versa, because you are not in the adjust mode. You are in the comfortable situation, and there's like new variables being added, and that's harder to kind of focus on, I think. Then Danny's going over, everyone's new, so like he's in that mode all the time. So taking in information is what his goal is, and he's focused on it. And so things can slip through the cracks the other way, I think, more than like if the guys aren't taking it super seriously, like you have to be the one that engages as the pitcher, and you really need buy-in from the catcher, I think, to do that. So ball accounts, though, Jansen's one of the better guys at like being on the same page very quickly, very easy to work with, and he's got pretty good intuition, and he watches the game, so he's probably pretty aware of the guys in there already.
Do you think the balance of power is changing at all between the pitcher and the catcher in terms of preparation? I was really surprised. I was talking to Cal Raleigh about, this is so difficult for you. You've got to be this good offensively. You've got to prepare defensively. You got to prepare all your pitchers and all this. Like, what's that been like for you? And he's like, well, generally I just defer to the pitcher's plan. Like the pitcher comes to me with a plan and we talk it over, and mostly they're going to be right. I may have a suggestion or two, but I was a little surprised to hear that. And that may be because the catcher has so much to do that maybe teams now are being like, okay, each pitcher has a plan that they develop with their pitching coach, maybe the assistant pitching coach, maybe the director of pitching, whatever it is. They have their plans and they kind of go over it with the catcher, but it's not like the catcher has to kind of look through all the hitters and make a plan for every hitter. It's more like the catcher gets on board with the plan. And the other thing I think that helps Jansen, I don't know, do you think that you saw any of that transition happening in the game?
Oh yeah. When I came up, it was like, Kurt, what are we doing? Kurt Suzuki. Yeah. and he'd be like, fastball down and away, changeup down, slider for bury the slide, like, just the basic stuff. And then you realize that like here, what they would like is all pitchers to have their own plan going in, because they want you to be bought in. That's how you learn anyway. So that is the goal. I think that now we have develop some strategies, and third parties outside of the game, the academies and stuff, have all gotten pretty good at this stuff too, telling you what works the best and whatever. So there's just so much information, so many different voices you can get, and it's just easier to figure out what that is for the guys. So and everyone has a plan, even the guys who are like just throw it over the plate, they still have something something on him that to that effect. So more prepared pitchers definitely now, and like the Mariners, for example, that is one of the reasons they're so good. Is all 5 of those guys. Not only they're buddies and they talk about pitching all the time, but they're just dialed in plan wise, and they feed off each other, and they have a core to where he just trusts that they got it. And that probably makes him a much better hitter.
That's true. That probably helps him a little bit. The other thing that I think of in this trade that is a little bit worrisome is that William Contreras has a long-term injury, and they've said publicly that if they put him on the IL, it's probably for a season-ending injury. On the other hand, I've seen that his hard hit rate numbers are up recently, so I thought he was kind of getting right, but his top-line results are terrible. Like, he's been bad all year. He hasn't really gotten that much better recently. So I wonder, is this hedging their bets that, maybe we do have to put William Contreras on there, or is it just, hey, we need offense wherever we can get it, so even the backup catcher needs to be offense friendly. So either way, Jansen is another way that makes it easier on him is he's not the number one guy. So he can sit for a couple days and learn before he has to catch somebody.
So I think the Brewers beat had the same question because Kurt Hogue, great writer from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, had this after the game. Pat Murphy was apoplectic about Jansen giving Contreras more time off. Here's Murphy's quote. For the finger he's had for 2 years, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to have him have surgery? When he hits it, it hurts. If he plays less, what are you saying? It's not going to go away by resting. That would struck a nerve.
But that also doesn't make me feel great. if I'm like depending on William Contreras, that sounds like it's an either or situation. I mean, he either just plays the string out or he's just gone for the year.
Yeah, I think the part of that Murph quote that surprised me was the finger he's had for 2 years. Like, I didn't know it was bothering him that much last year too. I knew it was early this year that it was more of an issue and started sapping that power. But at least based on the words of Pat Murphy, they're not planning on scaling back William Contreras' workload a ton. It does. I mean, Jansen's a great defender. You could DH him a little bit more and maybe reduce the number of times you aggravate a finger. I mean, could you imagine, like, of all the ways your catching hand has a bad finger, you're going to aggravate that constantly. If you're not doing it when you're hitting, you're just going to catch. You're going to receive a ball wrong. It's going to hurt, like inevitably, right?
It's not like he's out there having to catch Abner Uribe and Trevor McGill,
Trevor McGill and Mizorowski, like
just trying to knock his glove off of his body. Like, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably the surest way to make sure your fingers don't heal. Catch those guys. I did see a note that Reese Olson went on the 60-day IL, which helps explain something we got at the end of yesterday's show. Chris Paddack to the Tigers, right? Why did they trade for Chris Paddack? Well, Reese Olson's regular season is effectively over. I'm still on team never Paddack, but I do think the way the Tigers used pitchers in the second half of last season gives me some belief that he will be used in an optimal way, and perhaps they'll get a better result even if they're using him in slightly shorter stints over the course of the final 2 months.
They also got Randy Dobnak, the true prize. Can you just? I prefer to say as they got Dobnak and then they threw Paddack in. But no, I agree with you there. It is interesting because it's also in division, and that's usually a no-no. But for the Twins to be like, yeah, like I wouldn't say I'm never Paddack, but watching him, it does seem like he has a formula in his head, and there's not a ton of options. So it's like, if these 2 or 3 things that I'm going to do over and over to the same hitters don't work today, I'm going to get lit up. And that's not a great way to approach
never really
pitching.
Found a great breaking ball, like he's got a good changeup, and he's got some breaking balls he can sort through, but there's nothing like he can right. He has to go changeup a lot.
You don't see him be like, wow, the slider's good today, I'm going to lean on that. It's just, it doesn't matter. He's going to do the same. He's the same guy every single time, whether he's got those pitches or not. I
think you like 4 innings, 4 or 5. You keep them short. You don't let people see him a third time. Because if you don't deviate from what you do the third time, they've got it. The batter's got it locked, They've seen you twice. You didn't do anything different either time. And you don't have anything hiding in your bag of tricks, So I think if they use them in sort of 4-inning stints, and they can. They have some interesting long relievers. And Sawyer Gibson-Long may be a guy who can come back and sort of piggyback with him. And they're very different pitchers, so that might work. And then when you get to the playoffs, a guy with a good changeup, maybe he boosts his velo. I think he can still actually be helpful in the pen. I think he'll make the playoff rosters, if not as a starter.
We were kicking around the idea if you didn't have Skubal for an elimination game, pitches the day before, and you could choose from anybody else on that staff to start an elimination game, who would you want? And I think we kind of brushed by Jack Flaherty as sort of an obvious, I guess he'd be the second choice. But is it that obvious? Is it Flaherty clearly over Mize? And Olsen was part of that question until we knew he was hurt. But where are you at on Jack Flaherty right now based on what we've seen this year?
He threw way better in his last outing. Great. He had a great last start. Punched out 7 and 6 scoreless.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised honestly, he didn't show up on our streaky list. Did he?
I don't remember him popping up on that streaky list last week.
He's notoriously a better second half guy. He settles in. There's something. He finishes stronger than he usually does, though with the exception of last year, he was really, really good in the first half. But for the most part of his career, just generally the second half is a little stronger. And he's been a little bit just kind of forgot about over there. So, but in terms of experience, I would still, because I think Mize still has those peripheral things where you're like, this is like a dam that could break in the middle of an outing or middle of a playoff game where all the hitters are locked in. You know what I mean? Everyone's trying to extend at bats as long as possible. Not being able to get swing and miss is important. And I think that I would still go with Flaherty, even if Mize has had the better year so far.
I might try to use Flaherty at home. He's had an issue with the long ball. So maybe you try to use him in Detroit.
Yeah. Could be one way to work around it. Just lean to the schedule. Let the schedule make that decision.
Yeah.
Some other news and notes here. Chris Bubich out for the season with that rotator cuff strains. That was the follow-up that we didn't want to hear, but we at least have some clarity after learning of that injury over the weekend.
That sucks.
Yeah. Now that's a brutal one. Hopefully it's something that'll heal up and let him get to throwing in the winter and ramp back up and be okay for 2026. But his 2025 is over. Keeping an eye on Dylan Cease. He was sent for a CT scan. He got struck in the back of the head by a bounced comebacker during Monday's start.
So weird. His follow through turned him around, and then this ball, it was 99 into the ground. So by the time it hit its head, it was not 99, but I mean, what was it, 89?
Yeah, I would say 89 to the noggin still isn't great.
Yeah, but I think he also got that part of the bone in the back. I mean, he just sat down. It didn't look like he lost consciousness at all, and he wasn't bleeding at all. So I think it just hit one of the harder parts of the skull instead of one of the softer parts. And I don't know. He got back up and he pitched all right until that grand slam.
The other follow-up I saw was that Felix Bautista is going to be out a while after the MRI showed significant swelling in his shoulder. And I think the swelling was bad enough where they couldn't get a clear look at him structurally in one of the reports I saw. I was like, okay, that's not good either.
I have to worry if his slot is not healthy. He's so over the top. It's such a hammer throw. I don't know.
His trunk tilt isn't enough to show that he's not pinching his shoulder a little bit. It's not.
That's
neutral.
what I'm saying. It's gotta be pinching a little bit when you get up that high. You just see it.
Well, maybe we'll see him back again this year. They didn't rule him out for the season, but they described it as a significant absence now expected for Felix Bautista, which segues into our first big topic of the day. Protecting pitchers. Is anything working? Joe Sheehan came on the show a month or so ago, wrote about this in his newsletter last week, because in his first start off the IL, Jacob Mizorowski got a very quick hook by design in an effort to preserve his workload. And Joe's assertion is that we have all these things that teams and organizations are trying to do to reduce pitcher injuries, but there isn't necessarily evidence yet that any of it is working. But I don't know if I'm willing to just give up completely on it. I think we want to take a look at some longer term trends and hey, look, maybe we're turning one injury type into a new one. Maybe we're catching stuff a little sooner. There's all sorts of things that could be happening, even if we're not avoiding as many massive injury problems as we would like. So I guess the first question I have for you, Eno, are we seeing anything meaningful in terms of major injuries over time?
I think here's a helpful graph. This is a graph of Tommy John surgeries by year. It is off of John Rogale's database. This includes minor leaguers. And obviously, we are not through this year yet, but also, obviously, even if you doubled the number for this year, it would be the smallest number on the graph since. I'm squinting here. I know the number.
Yeah, even those numbers are a little small.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It would be the smallest since 2011.
2011,
so,
okay.
You know, we've gone back 15 years basically in terms of the peak. We were getting Tommy Johns that were on the level of 200. Is that right? 200. No, it's 100, 160, 180. We were peaking around 180 Tommy Johns a year. This year, we've had 40 so far, just for a sense of scale.
What year was that when we had 180? What roughly, like how long ago was that?
That was, I mean, obviously 2021 was a bad year, but we had already been making some progress before that. The worst was 2015. 2015 was the year that we had 175 Tommy Johns. This year we have 40. So that's real progress for me. And I think even in the stories that we just talked about, there's a little bit of a clue. What they're doing more often now, because we're not seeing reduction in days on the IL. In fact, those are going up. That's complicated a little bit by the fact that we introduced the 10-day IL. So now you can put somebody on for 10 days, although the pitcher is 15.
Pitcher's 15, yeah.
15. So in any case, what I think is those are preventative days. And so what we're trying to do with Bubic and what we're trying to do with Reese Olson is avoid surgery. You don't want them pitching so far that you have to announce slap labrum surgery. That's one of the worst surgeries you can have. And so I think we're getting a little bit better at avoiding surgery. What that means is more preventative days off. The other thing, I think I was just talking to Tyler White about this. And he was talking about like, even when we so I think we made some progress in understanding acute to chronic ratio. We're like, you have to build up to do something. You have to build up chronic, resistance, a chronic level of abuse to your arm, basically, a chronic level of work in order to do the acute days, which is game day. So we have this understanding of like throwing to pitch, throwing between pitching, throwing in the off season. We're getting a little bit better at understanding that. And I think that there's some evidence of like how they use Drew Rasmussen or even how they're using Jacob Mizorowski. In the past, you might have said, oh, well, let him throw 100, 120 pitches. We'll just shut him down around the All-Star break. Because we're counting innings. We used to count innings and we used to do weird things where we just shut a guy down. Well, I think that's unhealthy because you've got that guy all the way to zero. So you have to ramp him all the way back up. And I think that's where injury can happen. So instead of that, we're doing what the Drew Rasmussen thing is, we're counting pitches. So Drew Rasmussen goes down in pitch level, for a while, and then he's starting to come back up. And that's how they're managing his workload over the season. I think that's a little bit better because it's like slower. It's like a little ramp down and a little ramp up. It's not like we shut you down for 3 weeks, then we bring you back in. So, and then in terms of these preventative things, Bubic and Olson, what we're hoping is we've caught this early and we're not going to have surgery. And yes, he's going to miss a couple months, but we're trying to avoid surgery because surgeries, even if they have, quote unquote, good outcomes, it's still surgery. Nobody wants surgery. So I think there's a little bit of evidence that we've made some progress.
There's one thing I want to throw in here before Trevor jumps in. So 2020 is the big dip because the shortened season, there weren't as many Tommy Johns because people weren't throwing. We're just
and
stuck
then 2021, I think, was just a reaction to that. A lot of people got shut down. A lot of people were throwing on their own,
Yeah, and I think even in the years that follow, there's a big thing that changed in professional baseball. Remember, there were 42 minor league teams that got dropped before 2021. So you shrunk that pool considerably. So your raw count of major injuries would naturally go down if you drop 42 affiliated teams. So I think that's kind of a important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at something that's charting this way. It's not adjusting for a smaller minor leagues.
Indie ball in what would it look like?
Right.
Maybe it needs to be per capita or per percentage of total pitchers, right? That appeared in games or whatever. I agree on the or innings thing. That up downs, as they're called, are more important. I think that's the next iteration on top of just pitch count in general. Again, innings what an inning can be wildly different in terms of intensity and in terms of how much energy was expended. The way that I think about it, like I think about a lot of things, is in terms of like a video game, where there's like a little meter that goes up to from 0 to 100, and as a guy throws, that meter jumps up. Pretty much every single guy is going to be about 100 when they release the ball, and then there's a certain amount of time where that meter slowly drops back down. It has a release. For music lovers out there, that's a mechanic in music, for how long it takes to go back to 0. So the more you're doing that, and I think there's a sweet spot for how far you let it go down before you go back up. And then over time, if you're constantly only getting down to 80 and throwing again and get down to 85 and throwing again, then that's when the parts start to wear out a little bit more, because you're past the threshold of like your normal range of exertion where things revert back to normal. So, I think there is something to do with, I know it's not showing up on the data. That was one of the major concerns about the pitch clock, just because there's certain guys that need more time between pitches. We don't know what that is. We don't know that there's no data to really back it up. It's also not being studied. So I don't really know if we'll ever find out, but stuff like that, I think that is when you're starting to get more granular. If we can start to measure those things and come up with some version of that, you can have a better idea of how the arm is actually being affected. And things like pulse from Driveline, and it used to be Motosleep, and other technology is and there's working on algorithms that can build out based on your mechanics what type of torque's going through your elbow, and then extrapolate from there. But that is kind of where the science is going. But there is strain data. Like the arm is straining. So there is stuff to measure. We're just figuring out how to measure it. But I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a model that's based on that. And then it just happens to be the best way to implement that is by limited innings, because, in the middle of an inning, pulling a guy out and stuff just strategically doesn't work very well. And there's a little bit of a limit there. I'm doing that on purpose all the time anyway, like in spring training. So there's tons of stuff going on that side of things. And I am also interested in that data set because, back when Tommy John first got it, we had one surgery, Tommy John, where they would just put a new ligament in there.
Thing. We're looking at this. We're looking at this one surgery. That graph is one surgery. It's like, should we put all the surgeries on there? Because now we catch it the flexor, and we have flexor surgery before we have the Tommy John surgery. So is that good or is that bad? We avoided Tommy John, but we did still have a surgery. So
yeah, were we giving like 20% of the guys surgery when they could have just had PRP, but we didn't know about it? Like, we used to just cut first, ask questions later. In the words of Paul Molitor, he talked about cortisone shots. He said, "Shoot first, ask questions later." Like that was the way he thought about being able to play. He's like, it's just better that I play, and we'll deal with the consequences of the other stuff later. And now, he'll tell you right now. He's like, nah, now I hobble around. And it's not the best thing in the world, but that was the thing. So the thinking's also changed. Like there's a lot of options, and a lot of things you can try that you couldn't try back then too.
Some of this is public knowledge. Dr. Mike Sun used to write for The Athletic, and he had a fatigue units piece that he wrote, and that you can tell just from fatigue units, like. This is 2017, so this is something that's out there. It's fastballs thrown per inning, other pitches, innings pitched in a game, pace between pitches. I think an updated one had up and downs in it because he now works for a team and he can have that. Fastball velo was in it. So that's part of what's happening right now. But one thing that Tyler White brought up was like, you can have pulse on. Pulse can tell you how much, sort of stress is on your elbow ligament. You can have a biomechanical marker that says, oh, your shoulder, your layback changed, or your shoulder, your arm angle changed, or something like that. And that can sort of give you an idea for what is happening, and there might be fatigue and there might be injury coming. So that's the most advanced what we're doing now. But what Tyler White was saying to me is like, what we don't know, like when you do mocap and when you do pulse, you don't actually know what's happening in the muscles underneath. Mocap just tells you this part of your shoulder was here, and this other part, the part of the arm was here. It's basically turning you into those skeletons that you see.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have a great
there.
It doesn't have a great idea of how you got there. It doesn't really know what's going on in between. And so there is a new technology out called microneedles that's being that Billy Epler was working on with San Diego State and Stanford, where they're doing research on this. These are it's like a Velcro thing that you put on your arm, and it's actually little needles that go into your arm, and they start to tell you about what the interstitial fluid is doing. So where your sort of recovery hormones are going, like what your fluid is doing down there, and maybe some knowledge of what the muscles, what's contracting, what's not. And you can wear that while you're throwing. So, once we start to know, I think that'll be the next level beyond right now. Right now we're in sort of the mocap era where we're like, oh, shoulder do this bad, and at some point we'll be able to be like, oh, actually what we need to think about are the muscles inside there and how they're working and what we can do about those. I think so. I think Tyler's doing some pretty good work on there. He works with Logan Webb, and he's been keeping him pretty healthy. But there's more to be done.
My open tabs right now are out of control. I've got micro needles in one. I'm looking for the right life meter from NES games in the other. When Trevor was talking about the sliding meters, I thought the Tecmo Super Bowl back in the day, it had like the 4 physical conditions, like bad, average, good, and excellent. And then the meters would also adjust based on that. So like,
I was thinking of, what is it? There's some way you can have like, there's some fighting games where you can have like, you can press the extra juice to get the extra juice, but then when you like run out of it, like you have to recover.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the turbo.
It's like a special, turbo.
The turbo.
Or a special
There
bar.
used to be some games that had a turbo thing where you could use up your turbo, and you're like, oh no, I don't have any more turbo right now.
Yeah, NBA Jam had that. Turbo for a little while, then had to recover before you could use it again.
Yeah.
I think life should be more like a video game. It's a good call.
I mean, video games are kind of modeled after life. So
yeah, right.
We got to come back the other way, though.
Yeah.
This is the other chart that put in here. It was the bullpen trends over time from a piece that you wrote a couple of years ago, and I do think some of the adjustments were already in place because a lot of the conversation is about starters year over year. How do we manage workloads? And the Verducci effect, which was debunked years ago, it still gives you a relative idea of what a team is likely to do because a lot of teams haven't, at least publicly, come up with anything that they've decided works better or they're more comfortable with. And you see changes in the number of back-to-backs or 3 consecutive games or even long relief appearances. There's at least a concerted effort to change up usage in the bullpen, even if we're not talking as much about reliever health.
If anybody's trying to read this, again with the just put it up real quick. I mean, all the numbers are tiny, but basically what you're looking at, the orange is back-to-backs, and they're gone. We used to do those a little bit, and that's really I think back-to-backs right now are saved for September playoff races, and you're really trying to avoid them. Back-to-backs peaked. I think in the early 2000s, we've kind of stepped off of that peak. What has come back in vogue is what happens if you don't do back-to-backs and you're trying not to do too many back-to-backs. You need to have a 4-out, 5-out, 6-out guy. And that's the gray line at the top. So what we've seen is as back-to-backs have gone down and back-to-backs have gone down, the 4-out guy is back in vogue. And I think that's also a nod to what's happening with starting pitching. If your starting pitcher is only going to go 5 and you can't go back-to-back and you don't really want to go back-to-back, what's the missing ingredient? The missing ingredient is a guy who can go for 4 or 5 outs. And what we've seen, I think, is a little bit of the Earl Weaver thing where you'll have a starter who's on his way in, like the what we just talked about with the Giants, the Carson Seymour, Carson Whisenhunt, our ideal usage of Paddack and Sawyer Gipson-Long. What these all have in common is they're parts that are glue to the short, that you have these short starters and you have parts that are glue, and those sort of 4 to 5 out guys, we need a name for them. We need, like, long reliever sounds like if you hear, oh, I'm the long reliever for the Twins, you're like, oh, you're like the worst reliever for the Twins.
Yeah, it has a pretty negative connotation.
That's not
true. Yeah, you come in when the starter sucked, which means we're losing. And that's why we're okay you pitching.
But there are some that you bring in when you're winning. I mean, the Rays have done this, and Gipson-Long has done this, and other guys have done this. So it's like Fireman's not it either. It's like
Bridge,
Bulk, Bridge.
No. Needs a positive.
Bulk is
feels
the
like the Bridge.
Too.
Feels like the bridge because I still feel like the setup guys and the closers are still commonly clean inning, 3 up, 3 down, 3 out guys. Yeah. So bridging from the 5th to the 8th is what you're trying to use 2 guys for those 3 innings instead of 3. It makes all the sense in the world that
if you look at bullpens, that's the math right there. It's like if you had to use 5 relievers to get through the game, it's really hard to come up with a plan for the next game that doesn't include back-to-back-to-backs and back-to-backs. You know what I mean?
And that's where I think the guys that go for more than 3 outs are really valuable. And then if you don't use them in those extended roles, you kind of put yourself into a corner sometimes. Like I've seen that happen a few times, the way the Brewers use like DL Hall and Aaron Ashby and some of those guys that can go 2+, they come out and throw 1 inning. And you're like, oh, well, now you're going to lean on everybody else more because you didn't use that extra bit of length you could have used. And I like it. I like the teams that pushed reliever roles a little bit more like that. It just makes sense. You don't want everybody out there going 3 outs at a time. It does not make a lot of sense. I also think from a development standpoint, gives you more chance to work on more pitches, problem solve more hitters. I mean, there's long-term benefits. Maybe you could shift back into that starting role again someday. I think we've seen glimpses of that. We've talked about that a lot on the show. We've even had some short relievers like Clay Holmes make that switch somewhat unexpectedly. On a related note, there was a mailbag question in Discord directed to Trevor about Griffin Jax. Griffin Jax, a return to starting. Is that on the table? Either end of this season or maybe this offseason? Could you see Griffin Jax moving back into a starting role?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got the arsenal to do it. And the thing is, though, when you add more innings, all of that nasty stuff is going to diminish somewhere in a little bit. Mostly velocity. He probably will maintain a lot of the movement. But and then you have to factor in, like, how does that change his mindset? And does that affect the effectiveness of his pitches even further, or the confidence of it? Like for me, just being able to reach back for 98, and then if I looked up and the highest was 95, like there's just like less confidence in that pitch right away, and I have to relearn kind of what that means and what I'm looking for there and how I pitch. And some guys really rely on that mindset to pitch out of the bullpen, and then that kind of goes away as a starter, so they're completely different. I don't think Clay Holmes was one of those guys. I think that this makes a lot of sense. I don't think that Seth Lugo was one of those guys. He wanted to start the whole time. He felt like he wasn't in the right place the whole time. So, like, there's certain guys.
In terms of wanting to, Jackson, I think every time I've talked about it with Jax, he's wanted to start.
Well, then absolutely, because I think that what he's learned now, what he could do now with the weapons he has, he could be a very, very effective starter. It's just he's very strikeout hunt heavy guy, limit the contact. So it'd be interesting to see what that turned into. But in terms of like the arsenal and the ability to do it, yeah, there's probably no one better in a bullpen right now than him to make that transition.
Has enough pitches, has good enough command to make that switch again. Even though, as you said, you're going to lose a share of that velocity, you're going to lose a little bit of that nastiness working in those longer outings.
Who his comp would be? I mean, the thing is that, like, he has like a 104 stuff plus on the sinker and like a 90 something on the I just had it here. The 104 stuff plus on the sinker and an 86 on the four seam. So I think we know he has a great sweeper, and we know that the changeup has really taken off for him over the last couple of years. But let's say we found sort of a 5-point stuff plus reduction. What if he had a 99 stuff plus on the sinker and an 81 on the fastball? Like, who would he look like? I don't know. I don't know if I have a real answer. A lot of these guys are lefties. Sonny Gray is around there. Mitch Keller.
That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Mitch Keller, but
I think most teams would take
Mitch Keller.
Yeah,
Mitch Keller.
I think you want a Mitch Keller
fine.
or Sonny Gray. I think that most teams are like, well, yeah, we'll do that. That's great.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think on the lower end you've got Brandon Pfaadt, but I think he has a better changeup than Brandon Pfaadt, and so and obviously the Diamondbacks haven't pushed Brandon Pfaadt to the pen, so that's still above the would start line.
Yeah.
So and in terms of having a great just a comps for having a great sweeper, like having a great slider and a great changeup. I don't know. Fromber kind of does. Jacob deGrom, but he's not a Jake deGrom comp. Calm down. Tanner Bybee. Maybe
also still good. Yeah, you'd be happy to do that. I mean, I think it makes sense to give it a shot, at least in the offseason. Harder to make that adjustment in the final 2 months of the season, especially. But I think with the winter to prep for it, especially, yeah, I think that could definitely happen. Thanks to Corey in our Discord for sending in that question. Let's get to one more big topic for today. It's how I'd pitch this guy segment. We haven't done one of these in a long time. Kind of felt like I forgot about them. And Nick Kurtz inspired this one after going off on Friday with that 4-homer, that 6-hit game. Doing a ton of damage, leading all rookies in pretty much any offensive category that we'd get excited about. How about a 437 WOBA, 23 homers? The only short-term flaw, there's a 30.7% K rate, which makes me think, okay, there's at least some place in or around the strike zone where you might be able to beat Nick Kurtz, at least for now. So, I'll give you the floor first. What is your game plan for pitching to Nick Kurtz?
I have to tell you, I thought I had it. I thought it was super obvious. He is a high tilt, high bat speed guy. I said, you're going to throw him at the top of the zone. So I started this out, and you're like, oh, look at his swing rate. The first one on your left is the swing rate. Look, he swings out things down. Oh, I got this figured out. And then here's his contact rate. Oh, his contact rate is best low and in. Oh, I got him figured out. High fastballs. Well, the last one is his contact rate against high fastballs. That's not what I expected. He can actually do something with high fastballs. So, I went down the rabbit hole a bit further, and I found that high and away. So typically, this was a thing that Brandon Moss told me that I think has come true over the years, is that, the high tilt guys have a hard time flattening out their bat at high and away. So you go high and away. Well, guess what happens when you go high and away to Nick Kurtz? I'll tell you the good part first. You get a 50% whiff rate. Now, that's pretty exciting. So far, though, when he's put the ball in play, 900 slugging.
So it's a gamble.
23 slugging.
You're flipping a coin. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gambling up there.
Well, if you got that bat speed, you're always going to be flipping a coin.
Yeah, that's a good point. The last part, and this is where I want to throw it to Trevor here, is that there is a type here. So here are the comps. He lets the ball travel, but he has great bat speed, and he has great tilt. Here are his comps: Riley Green, Aaron Judge, James Wood, Joe Adell, Ryan McMahon, Shohei Ohtani, Cam Smith, Mike Trout, Ronald Acuna Jr. Pretty good comps. But then I said, and I took his comps, and I said, just lefties only. Let me see where he hits the ball. And this was like, okay, this is his fastball approach. He basically wants to hit the ball to the opposite field. He wants to hit the fastball out to the opposite field. And all the comps that are like him, that's what they do. They hit the fastball out to the opposite field. Now, what you can get in trouble is if you try to throw a breaking ball, down and in, and he even with a fastball to the opposite field approach, if you get that breaking ball early, you can pull it out. So I would say that's his basic approach. Now, I'm sure you've run into this, Trevor, where you're like, okay, high bat speed, high tilt, wants to go the opposite way on the fastball, and wants to be early on the breaking ball for homers. What do you do?
So what he hits the hardest too, so his nitro zone is closer to, it's not fully down and in, but it shades more. That's a spot that he, no matter what the pitch is, he can get to that spot. That's his natural swing. Closes his eyes and just swings. That's where his bat goes. Okay, I want to know that first. Interesting now with the bat tracking. I know he has a 39 degree tilt, but he also has a 0 tack direction, which actually was surprising. I thought it would be oppo a little bit more, like slightly, which I'm assuming most probably are oppo, and he just like rolls over breaking balls.
Yeah, you saw his comps. Most of those guys are more oppo.
So he likes the ball to get a little bit deeper. So a guy who's similar but from the other side, Pete Alonso, which that's a good comp. If you turn out to be Pete Alonso, I think the A's will be pretty happy about that, right?
Right.
So the up and the way, that's right now Pete is just getting blown away up and away because he's between, and this is what's probably going to happen when Kurtz starts struggling. You know, whether it's something's nagging, your hand doesn't feel good, and your bat speed slowed down a little bit. You get between these pitches, but that up and the way, a fastball is always going to be a high swing and miss. He's got a 50% swing and miss up there. He also has 40% whiff on changeups in general, though he has a 3-run value. That's a counting stat. So when he hits a changeup, he's crushing them, but he's crushing everything when he hits it. So it's about getting him to miss things. And the changeup and splitter, another pitch that he doesn't have any success against. He hasn't seen a ton of them, but it's one of the only ones that isn't a positive run value. And so using that up
like as a righty, you don't want to throw him a breaking ball because that's going to go right into his nitro zone.
No, you. The only way you would do that is if you are convinced he is now looking for fastball up and away, change up down. Like he is, you have him there looking there, and he's going to adjust, and you feel like he's going to adjust, and then you try to. If you have a cutter up and in. That's your best chance because he just.
I found some success there. A little bit. It has to be little bit off the.
You're not going to get a miss. He's not going to miss it, but you might get a jam him. So the extreme version of a guy who tries to stay inside of the ball who has that same issue is Nathaniel Lowe. He is an 8 degree oppo. He is the most. He just
doesn't
oppo.
Have that same bat speed.
He doesn't have the same bat speed, and he also doesn't swing and miss as much, which is that's the trade off there, right? But when he gets beat, it's fastballs up and away. It's just the natural. You're breaking your hands later. And so as that happens, if you don't have the bat speed to catch it up and get the barrel there fast enough, then you struggle and you start to foul those things off and just never hit them hard. And then you also struggle to get to anything in, which Nathaniel also just gets jammed like crazy. He just never hits anything hard. He doesn't pull anything hard on the ground because he doesn't have the bat speed anymore for that. But like that's the extreme version, and Kurtz is definitely more in that direction. And Pete is like that, but from the right side. So what you want to do is get him between your fastball and your changeup speeds because he's so good at when your bat's going really fast. If he breaks his hands early or late, his bat's going to go through the zone too fast and he's not going to be able to drag it through. That's one bad thing about having a fast bat speed, which is, to throw another name out there, the guy who's crazy. The reason Juan Soto is so good is because he varies his bat speed as well as flat versus vert. He does both of those things. And he hit that oppo homer in Sunday Night Baseball at 71. Below average bat speed. Like, can Kurtz do that? That's also another thing I'm looking for. That's like that if he does that and like is able to drag the bat through the zone more.
I'm guessing with his whiff rates and stuff that he's not as variable. You know what I mean? Like I'm guessing that they will find something where he can't adjust as quickly because.
And he's just kind of dialed in. So sometimes like he just sees things and he's making really good swing decisions early and just on it, and things are just happening.
He's
got
to be murder on fastball slider righties, you know, like
they're just like breaking balls.
I think I would be like if I only had like basically my best 2 pitches were fastball slider as a righty, I would try the up and away, and then I'd try a backdoor slider maybe like just a real one that he gives up on, you know, and maybe you get a called strike there on the corner
just to show you throw it. You just got to mix one in.
And then
he needs to know that it's an option. That's all you need to do.
In off the plate where I don't hit him, you know, but in off the plate. Because if I leave it over the plate, he's going to smack it. So, I mean, this is also why when you see stuff like this is also why feared hitters, the distance from the center of the zone, the pitches that you throw they have a higher distance from the center of the zone because you're afraid of them. So now I just told you that if you're a fastball slider righty against Nick Kurtz, you have to throw him in off the plate, up and away off the plate, and a backdoor breaking ball that you hope catches a little bit of the plate. Yeah.
And how many pitchers
like
have you just
to me?
How many guys have you just like eliminated because they can't command those pitches to each of those parts of the zone?
Yeah.
Who can even execute that game
There's
plan?
not a lot of guys that I would hesitate to bring Randy Rodriguez into face, but Nick Kurtz is one of them. Like, it's just, and not only that, his slider's so flat, which it's incredible. Like, incredible how much it moves. But it's just, Nick Kurtz, like, you're exactly what I want. You're just four seams, and you just have to throw up and away all the time. And, like, Edwin Diaz, like, not a fun guy to face because it just plays into what he does really well.
But this is also where you see Randy Rodriguez like try to go up and away 3 times in a row with the fastball. It's 2-1, and Nick Kurtz is just smiling because it's like, are you going to do it again? Because I've seen it now 3 times in a row, and if it's anywhere near the plate, that's the 900 slugging.
Or are you going to throw an 88 mile an hour sweeper that just stays into my barrel?
Zone. Yeah,
which I'm just going to pull like that. There's a certain level of comfort. There's not a lot of guys comfortable with that. The last I know I've named a lot of players in this, but I just want to say, just in general look, vibe, swing, and jersey size, he reminds me of Jim Thome. I don't know if you guys are getting that vibe.
Wow!
But like, he's got the baggy jersey. These guys are not wearing baggy jerseys.
I want to see
even the
Jim
swing
Thome's
a little bit.
Swing metrics,
like the way he went oppo
for the old guys. Like
the
I want to
way
see Barry
he went
Bonds
oppo was
swing length
Thome.
and swing bat speed. Dude, Barry Bonds must have had like 80 mile an hour bat speed, right?
Had to be. He had Stanton.
Yeah,
he was whipping that thing through the zone.
Yeah, and maybe like a Luis Arias swing length. Like I feel like it was epic. I want to know his bat metrics.
I was reading the story about where the Big Amish nickname came from, too. How do we feel about the Big Amish for the nickname?
I love that.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it. From? I need to know the origin story first.
He's from Pennsylvania, right?
He's from Pennsylvania, and I guess Martin Gallegos has a story from MLB.com. So at spring training, Max Schumann's the one that actually came up with this. It was back in February during spring training in Arizona. Marcotte rounded up all the players who were taking part in their first big league camp inside the A's clubhouse at Hohokam Stadium, had each newbie tell a story in front of the entire team. When it came Kurtz's time to share, he stood in the middle of the clubhouse and told a story about taking an Amish tour when he was in middle school on a farm near his hometown in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where a large Amish population has existed for centuries. So that speech is what led Schumann to come up with that nickname.
They just heard the word Amish, so like, there it is.
Big Amish. I love baseball players are just children.
Anything.
Yeah, and originally they were mispronouncing it on purpose as Amish instead of Amish, which I think has something to do with Schumann and the way he pronounced it at one point. But Big Amish.
Of course, Max Schumann. I just imagine him saying Amish and not knowing that was wrong. That's something. I played with Max for like 2 weeks in when I was coming back when I was with them in Salt Lake for a bit, and that tracks.
Yeah, it's kind of like there was a drop for a while that MLB TV would show. It was Shane Bieber making fun of one of his teammates for saying charcuterie instead of charcuterie. I just wanted to know who said it. I never could figure out who he was talking to behind it, but it was a great soundbite. There's a lot of guys like that in every clubhouse. So
yeah.
A couple notes on our way out the door from producer Brian. Oh, well, hey, you don't have to do that to yourself. I was going to transition away from it. I was going to clear it. Producer Brian passing on 2 notes. Eugenio Suarez out of the lineup today, but all medical testing came back clean after he got hit by a pitch in the hand in Monday's game. So the Eugenio Suarez trade watch lingers on. We're going to have our live stream Thursday, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific on YouTube. Brian also pointing out that the Royals have announced that Rich Hill has been DFA'd.
What team? What team is he going to go to? What team has he not been on? We got to break the record.
That would break the record. Break the record. We need to put him on a team he's never been on. I don't think he's ever pitched for the Reds, right?
Can you name all of Rich Hill's teams before we go? You guys
know
it?
It's Red Sox, Red Sox, Red Sox, Red Sox, Red Sox. So those are 5 times. Red Sox,
Cubs.
Dodgers, Twins, Mets.
Started with the Cubs. Yep.
A's.
Yep. Cubs, Red
never
Sox,
pitched for the
A's.
Giants.
Cubs, Red Sox, A's, Mets, Twins.
Yep, Mets and Twins are in there. Easy to miss those.
Rays?
Yes.
Rays.
2021 Rays.
Kansas City. Pirates.
Yeah.
There's 8.
Yep, Kansas City. Yep, Pirates in 2023.
How many do we need and how many do we have?
14. There's 14.
Yeah, there's 14 to get. I think you've named 6 or 7 so far.
Dodgers? Did you say Dodgers?
No, we didn't say that. That's
we'll
correct.
Throw it in there. There's 8.
Yep. I think you're
Padres.
8. Padres 9.
9. Mets.
Oh.
Yeah, you got Mets. That's a correct.
Yankees? Was he a Yankee?
Yes, he was a Yankee. Very briefly. 14 appearances in 2014. That brings you to 10.
How are there 4 more teams?
1, 2, 3. I see 3 that you haven't named at least. I think maybe you have 11 so far.
Rangers?
Jeez.
No, never a Ranger.
Okay. He was on the
I
Braves.
don't think he was ever a Cardinal.
Not a
One
National.
AL West.
Not a Brewer?
Not a
He
National.
was an Angel?
Not a Brewer.
Angels.
He was an Angel.
There you go.
2 games. He did not record an out. He pitched in 2 games for the Angels in 2014 and did not record an out.
I love
we're
him,
11.
by the way.
We need 3 more.
I think you need 3 more. Maybe
No,
only
not
2.
Mariners.
I'm only seeing 2 that you haven't named.
Braves?
No.
Marlins?
No. Double checking to make sure there's not an FLA instead of an MIA or something in there. No Marlins. Yeah, you guys hit the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Cubs. You definitely didn't get the next one on here. 1 year, AL Central team had a 6.28 ERA during his time there.
Cleveland?
Was it early?
Cleveland. Yes, he did.
Cleveland, yeah, it was
Cleveland. You guys got the Pirates. You had the Rays. AL East team, negative WAR. Early in his career, actually the second big league team he appeared for.
Orioles?
Orioles, yep.
Oh.
Yankees you got, A's you got, Mets, Padres, Twins, Angels, Royals. Yeah, that's all of them. So
I
you
did
had 12.
No,
I got Braves. Braves going to get him. They're picking up everyone.
Yeah.
They just picked up Fetty. Go get him.
Carrasco or
They traded for Carrasco.
Yeah.
Got Fetty and get Rich Hill.
Yeah. Might as
Although,
well.
you know, the Giants,
hang
we were just
around.
talking about the Giants have a need in the rotation. It'd be funny if they, like, we're buyers. We bought Rich Hill.
Oh, he'd love that. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that could just use a, like,
Starter
get
for
him,
this week.
spot start him.
Yeah.
I
Get
mean, at
that
this point, you
record.
just
Come
got to
on.
break the record.
Just
record,
get one
a
more.
record. Edwin Jackson's like, no one's ever breaking this. I almost pitched against myself.
Yeah.
Didn't he he got traded to a team where he was on the schedule where he was going to start the game for the other team, and then for a brief moment it said Edwin Jackson throwing against Edwin Jackson.
We need that, right? Because Danny Jansen did that last year because of a game that got delayed or postponed
for both teams.
Played for both teams in the same game. We need a pitcher to do that. You need a pitcher to start the game against one team and then resume it starting for the other. That seems like a Rich Hill sort of thing. Baseball Reference had a graphic last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, but it was Rich Hill, all of his teams, all of Edwin Jackson's teams, and then there was like the overlapping in the middle of the Venn diagram. But then there were a few teams that neither one of them had pitched for. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting random trivia question. Like, which teams did not have either one of those two guys? Because just about everybody had one of them at some point. We're going to go on our way out the door. Just a reminder, you can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together on Blue Sky. You can find Trevor. I am Trevor May. You can find Eno. He's Eno Saris. I am DVR. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.